I think we need to wait for a few minutes. All right, I think we can get started. I can see my chat. Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our SCONE working group session. And this is our fourth virtual interim meeting. The focus of this meeting is open issue resolving on SCONE protocol. And I hope everybody have a good Easter holiday, especially for European colleague. And so my co-chair is not here. He's get away for vacation, so I will moderate for today's discussion. Note will apply as usual, and I don't want to go into detail about this. I believe all of you already familiar with this. And please remind we will agree to all the process and the rules. And you have up here, please discuss as early as possible. And here's the working group status. And we already set up 2 work streams for both protocol and semantics. And we make good progress for protocol work stream. We also receive semantic proposal. And I hope this will be good input and can be integrated into the protocol proposal at some time point. So I encourage the author of the semantic proposal continue to polish your proposal. And to facilitate the progress of 2 work streams, we schedule 3 interim meeting, since double meeting, and also 2 face-to-face meetings. So this is the first virtual interim meeting we have now. And yeah, IETF work with milestone, which link with the data. And the document in question is the standard track document for SCONE protocols. We plan to submit this work item to IAG for publication in November 2025. And here's the current status. And I think since the previous interim meeting, and we already agree actually, and I think based on the adoption call result in Bangkok meeting or the previous interim meeting, and we all agree actually this draft will be the good starting point. And here's our work plan. Actually, we will starting to call adoption for these works upon this new version get posted. And I also want to mention, we all agreed to change the protocol name to the SCONE. And one of the big reasons is try to align the working group name with the name of the protocol produced by this working group. And edible is another reason to change the name. And okay. Yeah. Here's the objective for today's meeting, and we will continue to progress the protocol workstream and to discuss open issue resolution on the new SCONE protocol proposal. So one of the suggestions from chair perspective, maybe we can prioritize all these open issues in the GitHub and allocate a label for each issue, so we can better progress for the high priority issue for the next meeting. Here's the meeting agenda for today's discussion. We'll spend most time on the SCONE protocol open issue discussion. I believe Marcus and Martin will lead the discussion. And I also receive a request from Matt, and he may join later. I hope Marcus and Martin, you can coordinate with Matt. Any agenda bash? Okay, I think we can continue. Marcus, Martin?
So do you want to do like last time that we go through the
I will pass control
open
to
PRs
you.
and issues
Yes.
in GitHub? Yeah.
Okay, let me pass control to you.
Share screen. Okay, I have slides control now, but I requested the screen share. I don't know if you need to stop sharing your slides first. Or...
Yeah, maybe you can request again.
Okay, I'll try again. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, I requested again screen share. I don't know if you need to stop sharing your slides first.
Okay.
Or...
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I stopped. Oh, okay, I stopped slides. Oh.
Yeah.
I had slide control. Okay. Try again. Okay, yeah, again, requested screen share. I'm not sure if you need to approve anything on your side.
Yeah, I haven't received. Let me check. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, it works now.
Yes, and then I will. Okay, I think it shows. So yeah, just like Kazuhu mentioned in the chat, we don't have many new issues. We have closed some issues. We have merged a number of PRs, and my feeling is that we are very close to being in a state where we, where we can do publish a document to do an adoption call on. We have a bunch of issues here, which probably are fine to move to, or to handle as a working group after we get the document adopted. I think there's one major discussion that we should probably have prior to adoption, and that is actually not in one of the issues. It's rather in one of the PRs, but that's also the discussion that Matt wanted to drive with some slides. So I don't know if we can start with some simpler issues, or how you would like to do this.
Yeah.
But in principle, like, we went through most of these issues last time, and I think we agree that most of these issues are fine with kind of punting to once we have an adopted document.
I think since
on the PRs we have two pull requests open. The rest of the ones have been closed that we had last time. One is a very simple one. It's about renaming. So we're going from Trone to SCONE, like you mentioned. So it's there. And the one that we probably need some discussion on is this about adding a Trone indication. So I think we can start this discussion, even though Matt is not here yet. Otherwise, we will have to focus on issues which are maybe less urgent. So I don't know if there's a preference in the group, but I guess this is the most pressing issue to discuss.
Yeah, I think Matt has a slides he want to present.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to, maybe leave this at the end so he can join? We can.
Yeah, we can also
put
this to the end, but then I see Martin is in the queue as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, this is probably the most important one for us to, the most important issue. But if how long are we waiting for Matt? Let's not wait around forever.
Yeah, exactly.
If there are slides that we can go through, then maybe we can go through the slides. But I'm just looking through the other issues. I don't know that there's anything else that I think needs a lot of discussion. Maybe we could briefly touch on 17. I'm just trying to work through the list. I don't know that there's anything else that really needs attention from the group.
I agree with that. So I think it's probably fine that we start this discussion. Obviously, we have more people in the queue here as well. So
yeah, sorry.
Hi, I was only going to ask, have we decided on the name as a working group for the protocol? Because it seems like we're talking like everybody's converged on SCONE. Is that really where we're at?
Yes.
Well, that was the consensus at the meeting last time. I think there was no consensus call on the mailing list or anything like that, right? But on the meeting, there was, I think there was even a poll for it, and then some questions were sent out to the rest of the authors who weren't present at the meeting. So
yeah.
Well, I guess the chairs need to talk to the people or the working group, and then we need to send something around the list just confirming it. You don't have to poll people, but you do at least need to make sure everyone has a chance to agree with you. And then you could do the adoption call when you're ready after that. But we need the name, I guess, first, because you can't adopt something we don't know what we're calling it.
Okay.
So we kind of decided to go for SCONE, and so far there has been no pushback from anyone. Like, so yeah, I guess I guess there's still not a working group document, so I'm not sure if we formally need a mailing list confirmation here or.
No, you just need to create a milestone sometime that says what it is. And I'm really facilitating that discussion now, because if people start jumping up after this meeting and saying, oh, I don't like this, then it's been aired, hasn't it? So just airing it and letting people think and putting my hand down and hoping that you'll figure out when Matt arrives.
Yeah,
Right.
I think.
Okay. I think Kazuha had a good. In the chats here, I see Kazuho had a good comment here about what we can do with the issues. We can sort them on updated and quickly scan through if this is anything that we need any discussion on right now.
So Marcus, I think
most recent
for SCONE name, actually this already get agreed by all the author, right? So I agree with Gary. Maybe we should after this meeting post to the mailing list to get people sense about this naming change. But we can go through this process. Next.
So
Mia?
does that mean that we need to wait with an adoption call until we confirm the name on the list, or?
Yeah, I think we should, make people, because all the discussion, happen on the GitHub. Maybe people are not aware, the naming change. So as a chair, I think I can, drop an email to the mailing list to make people aware of this naming change. And so if there's no, objection, actually, we can go ahead for the adoption call. What do you think about this?
As I'm next in the queue, I might just speak up.
Yeah.
I think this is an individual draft, so if all the authors agree that they should rename it to SCONE, they should just do it, and then we run the adoption call with that new name. We had a discussion last time where everybody seemed to agree that SCONE is a better name to make it easier to explain things. So I hope that's what the authors go for, but I don't think we need it in a separate call.
Okay.
But I was in the queue to actually ask another question. So we discussed issue 7 last time, which is about sending an egg. And I thought we actually concluded on it, but it's still open. Is there more discussion needed, or what's the status of that issue?
I think the status is that we punt any final resolution of this until this. The conclusion was that this is not something we will fully resolve prior to adoption, and we don't need to resolve it. I think there was agreement that there was rough agreement in the meeting that we probably don't need that mechanism, but we also said that there's no need to close the issue right now. It's a matter of it's not something we need to address for adoption. And then if
okay,
if people's
yeah, that's fine. Maybe as a general comment, maybe we can put into each of the issues that we discussed, we can put a quick 1-sentence summary, so we actually remember what the status was after an interim meeting, I mean. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, the next, Christian.
I went in the queue to discuss this business of names. I think we have a great consensus. This is an individual draft. There is no process to change the name of an individual draft. The process is during the adoption call. So let's have, we all agree that all the authors, all the editors have agreed that we'll change the name of that draft. That's an individual decision. We can make that at any point. And then we have an adoption call, and the adoption call is where the working group can chime in if they want to.
Okay, I hear different opinion, from Christian and Mia. So Gary, actually, I think, yeah, maybe we can, just start the adoption call. We can discuss the naming change during the adoption call. We don't need to have separate process for this. What do you think about this?
No, I think the best way would be to submit another draft with the name change and then do the adoption call. That I think would be the clearest process.
I think that's in our plan actually
Okay.
right now to do exactly that. Submit the version with the new name and then do adoption call. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, just do that. Just
Okay.
do that, because then there's no need to debate it at all if you've changed the name.
Yeah.
Great. So, with regards to the rest of the issues, Kazuo had a proposal there just to sort them on which one has most recently been updated, and then we can quickly see if there's something we need to discuss now. There is here an interesting issue on multipath and Trone. All the issues still have Trone in their names, by the way, but that's what it is. I think it's a super interesting discussion. I think this is definitely in the category of let's talk about this post adoption. It's mainly around guidance. SID rotation and Trone is exactly in the same category. And please, anyone jump in if you don't agree with that, or if you think the name is so interesting you want me to open the issue and actually show it. These are all super interesting discussions to have, and it's mainly around guidance on, what is the applicability of advice? Like, what is the notion of a path from the perspective of a network element, etc., etc. Great issues. I don't think we will need to resolve them prior to adoption. But Christian is in the queue, so please.
Yeah, I entered those issues because I am very worried when I hear people triggering the idea of triggering specific resource allocation in network based on the SCONE packet that have been observed. And I wanted to have these issues in the record, because if you do that, you have to consider that people will change the CID, they will do multipass, etc. So we have probably, the only thing we'll need in the letter side is explain that these things happen, and don't be silly. Don't assume that the CID will not change. Don't assume that a given application will use just one pass, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's for later. It's absolutely for later.
Yeah, great. One issue that is interesting, which I also think is for later, it's on guidance, basically on what kind of guidance should we have in the document around how, under what conditions and what frequency endpoints actually generate SCONE packets and allow the network to signal new rates. I think this is again a discussion that is not something required for an adoption. This will result in some guidance text, and maybe we can learn something through experimentation along the way prior to publication. But I again don't think that this is something we need to spend time on here. But I'm happy to hear if anyone has opinions on if we want to address this issue right now. Did you insert yourself?
Yeah, Marcus. Actually, I just want to relay one comment from Lucas, and his general comments. Actually, he think for success adoption, I should put all the issue across. If so, consider add some label now to make it abundant, clear on the document roadmap. I think I have a similar comments. We should prioritize all the issue, add a label, and to people can better track of that, each issue.
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely discuss what kind of labels we need, and I'm sure there are some standard labels we can use, and maybe even assign priority to the issues. And I think that would be a very fine thing to do once we get to the point of adoption, I think.
Yeah. Martin?
Yeah, so we're discussing these things in the abstract as if we can't do any work until we adopt something, but I think we can still probably make some progress on some of the principles that underline some of these common ones, particularly the ones Christian raised. I think there's a really good question in that multipath one with respect to what the signal really means when you receive it from the network. And from my perspective, the sort of guiding principle that we have is that the signal is about a specific flow, and the signal says that there is a broader context. There's a set of flows of which this flow is one of that is constrained by this throughput limit that's applied in policy. And where that flow is the dominant flow through a particular path, then that will become the sort of overriding guidance for that particular thing. If the path or that collection of thing is shared by multiple different applications, then those applications will probably have to rely on the congestion controller to manage the allocation of bandwidth within that flow. But otherwise, that's the only thing that we can really say. When it comes to multipath, there's the potential for the multipath connection as a whole to operate across multiple of these contexts, the things that we can't see through the protocol. And that's okay. Multipath, flow allocation and whatnot is a science and an art. And a lot of the multipath controllers will probably be able to manage that perfectly well, with the understanding that in some cases the flow signals will appear to be different across the different flows, and sometimes they'll be the same, and sometimes they'll have to make decisions based on imperfect information, and that's always the case with these protocols anyway. Does that fit with your understanding, Christian?
Yes, absolutely. I think having clear guidance on both sides. I mean, we have to have clear guidance for the applications that, okay, you are part of a set. That set is bound, but you can. It's not an authorization to go all the way to the bound. It's saying, hey, if you go all the way to that bound, you're going to be limited. If the set goes there, you'll be limited.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The other thing is that, as I say, I grew very concerned with the discussion of triggering enforcers based on SCONE signals. Because if you do that, the SCONE signal has parts that can change. I mean, for example, if you have a 4-tuple, things that are on the same 4-tuple can still differ by, say, connection ID. They can also differ by DS marks. So it's not completely clear there what's the relation there. And in a multipath connection, for example, it's entirely plausible that I would have a multipath connection with 2 paths on the same 4-tuple, but with different DS marks. And we'll have to understand whether those are bound by the same set or not, and if the application has a way to know that.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to make a call when it comes to DS markings. I don't know that there's any. I would say the natural thing to do here is to regard the different DS markings as having different potential throughput advice attached to them. But in the absence of throughput advice on one and throughput advice on another, you might assume that they're the same. You can come up with some heuristics, basically. But I think the baseline assumption would be that different markings have different treatments in policy by networks.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to say that somehow.
Yeah, and I mean, right now we're talking about the language we're using is rate limiting a UDP4 tuple. We can consider, defining that tuple as a combination of, of including code points as well, potentially. But yeah, this something we need to discuss further. And yeah, I see that Matt is here, so. Maybe so Matt, what we've been doing so far is we've been waiting to have the most urgent discussion, we think, which is on one of the open PRs, because you had some slides on that. So we've just been discussing some issues, but we kind of conclude that these are all important issues, but these are not issues that we need to resolve prior to adoption. So if nobody disagrees, I think we should maybe move to the discussion we have, the one open PR we have, and that related discussion. Oh, that Matt is here.
Yeah, I think we can do that. I think I'm going to have to maybe share my screen if I want my slides. It's not a lot of slides. Let me see.
So then I'll stop my screen for now.
Jinder, did you manage to, can you get the slides? Because I couldn't upload them to the data tracker either.
Yeah, I have a difficulty because I don't have, maybe you can share your screen because we currently don't have slides on the deck.
Okay, I think I have to restart Chrome. So I will be right back. Oh, yeah.
So Matt, can you request the screen sharing again? Yeah, we can see the slides now. Matt, we cannot hear you.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, okay. All right, too many buttons. Okay, so I made a very short deck on this problem. I just wanted to give everyone background first. So the problem here that these indications that were mentioned on the PR are meant to solve is, so if we think back to the early days of this whole line of work, a lot of these systems that we're talking about that are managing these kinds of traffic, often video, they use flow-based detection. So what happens is, they see a new flow through their network that's, doesn't match any other flow that they see. and they try to figure out what it is. And so they'll use some heuristics and also things like parsing the entire packet, doing trial decryption, and seeing if it's a quick initial. And if it is a quick initial, then they will go through and parse out things like the SNI from the client hello, and then they will apply policies based on that. So a very typical thing would be to say like, oh, here's a quick initial, the SNI matches, say, the Facebook CDN, and so I'm going to apply my Facebook video policy to this traffic. And so this is bad for a lot of reasons. I don't think I really need to go into why this is not a great practice, but we have an opportunity with SCONE to potentially obviate that, which is to say the reason that they're doing these sorts of detections in the first place is because they want to apply the policies. And so if we have a SCONE-capable flow, then they could potentially latch on to that and not need to do some of these things. And that would also enable things to be rolled out like ECH. So like if there's no reliance on SNI, then these systems don't need to know anything about parsing quick initials, and so they can rely on a different mechanism. So that's kind of the problem. So the solution idea, and this is on the PR, this is very much a straw man solution just to get some discussion going, and I think it was successful in that regard and that there's lots of discussion, is basically to make it so that when a client is sending its initial, that's opening up the flow, establishing the flow in the network, it provides some sort of hint or indication to the network element that it's going to try it's SCONE capable, or it's going to try to use SCONE. And so the way this would work is some sort of thing where we'd put it outside or after the quick initial. And then this would, the network element would be able to see that very cheaply without having to do any trial decryption or anything like that, and just see like, oh, this is probably SCONE. I'm going to like put my sort of flow into a bucket where I think that this is I'm going to expect to see SCONE later, and then I don't have to do this expensive initial processing. So there's lots of discussion about this on the PR. The general vibe I have from this is that this is hard to do. I knew like when writing the straw man that like it didn't feel super robust, but so there's a lot of good commentary on how we could make that better. Kazuha has some really good recommendations. I think we can come up with even more things, but I think the broader question that we want to discuss here is this something we want to do in the protocol? Is this a really useful feature that we need to have? And is it my impression, and part of the reason I was doing this is like from talking to certain folks, that this would be, with not having this would be a bit of a problem for some deployments, and that this is a really good carrot for having potentially massive and expedited adoption of SCONE. If we had a feature like this where network elements could remove some of this kind of DPI and they could rely on something else instead. So yeah, that's all I've got. So I think we can take it over to discussion now.
So Martin.
All right, I'll just jump in then. So I think there's an interesting question here about what it looks like. If you imagine a world in which every client on the network and every server on the network did SCONE, they understood the protocol and were willing to negotiate it and would be able to consume the signals, then network elements wouldn't need this. They would see a new quick flow coming along. They would know that SCONE is going to be respected on that flow, and they would just not bother with any of the DPI on the handshake at that point, is my theory anyway. I think it's the adoption point that Matt raised here that's the key one. For some period of time, we'll have a whole bunch of quick flows that don't have any SCONE associated with them and clients that don't understand the protocol at all. And networks are in a position where they they might like to disable the DPI for certain flows, but wouldn't confidently be able to do that except for the limited few that that they are sure support this new protocol. And originally, I thought that the problem was you sort of came in and you saw a new flow, and then it's even if it had the signal, you're not sure that it's going to be doing SCONE, and you would still have that uncertainty, and you have to deal with that uncertainty until such time as you saw one of the signals fly past. But I'm still in two minds as to whether the transitionary value of this is there. And maybe we're always in a transition, and not every client's going to implement this. So maybe we do need that sort of discrimination signal. And yeah, Michael's right. No one's going to stop doing DPI altogether. Let's not pretend.
Yeah, and just a quick point. I totally agree with that too. That like DPI will absolutely still exist. But can this be a way that we can significantly, like if we could make it so that all video traffic on the internet using Quick does not get DPI'd to a significant degree, like I think that would be very interesting and a compelling thing for network operators, is my understanding. Kazuho, you want to?
Right. So Kazuho, so I agree with others that there's benefit in discussing this and potentially seeing if we could just go without having this signal. I'm not sure if we can, but taking a step back, I think we are in a transitionary phase, as others mentioned. I mean, the effort of limiting bandwidth started with trying to rate limit specific services, and that's why we had to use DPI. But we are now transitioning to a world where we try to rate limit any video traffic. And the argument behind having the indication is that probably we can identify those traffics by having the signal. But in the future, we have the potential to rate limit any traffic. Meaning, and fortunately, the design of SCONE is now generic enough that it complements congestion control in a application agnostic way, meaning that congestion control controls the bandwidth at the time scale of RTTs round trips, while SCONE controls that in a longer time scale, like 10 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever we decide to. So I think the protocol, I think the design of SCONE is now generic enough to handle any traffic and to complement the signaling from CC. So then my question is like, why do we need to have a flag that identifies a particular type of traffic? I think that's my comment.
Okay, I think that's an interesting comment. I do think that, yeah, maybe that's the replying to Kazuo initially there. Maybe that's an end goal where we're going to get to that you provide like general SCONE, something like SCONE is providing general guidance to any type of traffic. But what's really driving this is the current practice of applying rate limitation to flows that are to applications that are adaptive in such that it reduces the volume over the networks. It's a way of managing networks. The way this is done today is by typically it's not trying to discriminate. So I have this policy for Facebook and I have that policy for YouTube. Typically it's like, and oftentimes it's due to regulatory requirements, is that I'm trying to do this for all video, but the only way to detect this is right now to DPI the flows and figure out, yeah, is this a likely video flow or not? And that's not precise science either, right? You look at some fields and you guess that this is video and you throttle it. And one of the main motivators for operators to deploy something like SCONE is that you get this information very cheaply, like Matt says, and that reduces a lot of complexity in the network. And sure, anyone can say that they're SCONE capable, and the consequence of that is that you might get rate limited, and maybe you wouldn't get rate limited otherwise. So in this transitionary period, as we call it, I foresee that networks will look at flows. If they are SCONE capable, then they can omit the parsing. If they're not SCONE capable, they will do the SNI parsing for some time at least, and to determine whether this is a flow that is of interest for shaping. And the ones with the SCONE indication, if they don't provide any possibility to update rate limits, they will most probably get throttled, like just in the way that those flows that were DPI'd would be. And then the importance of having this as an indication is that DPI typically starts by, the first packet you see will trigger the deep packet inspection. So if you don't get this on the first packet, that will then probably for a very long period, force the networks to do their DPI, because if you don't start looking at the first packet, you're kind of screwed. You've lost your chance to try to parse the SNI or whatever you want to do. So I believe that this is an important thing for adoption. That's my point.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the assumption that all quick traffic will be SCONE enabled in the future. I don't think that makes sense to me. This SCONE makes sense to a certain class of traffic, specifically video, because video is adaptive. So you can actually make something useful with a signal. You have different encodings, and then especially if you're on a mobile device and you're watching a video on your mobile phone, probably anyway the highest coding rate doesn't make too much sense or whatever, but that's where getting some guidance about this is a good rate that will probably be served by the network in a useful way is really, really helpful. Because if you're trying to go to high, you can really impact the user experience. This is not true for all kind of quick traffic, right? If I'm web browsing or if I'm downloading something, whatever, I just try to maximize my capacity. I don't care about this. So the assumption that SCONE will be used for all quick traffic doesn't make sense to me. I think it will be used for a certain class of traffic, which the only traffic I'm considering right now is actually video. And so that means SCONE is an identifier for a certain class of traffic that has certain characteristics. And given SCONE is an identifier, I think it would be really useful to also design it as an identifier explicitly rather than trying or like having people doing implicit things about it. So I think this is very useful.
Hi, this is Sanjay. So a couple of thoughts here. So one is that true indication allows network elements to differentiate between SCONE and non-SCONE, as Marcus was saying, which is important for avoiding deep packet inspection. And I think from the outset, we want to give SCONE the advantage that it does not fall into the same bucket as the deep packet inspection. So if the network has to perform the DPI, i.e. without the true indication, then really there's no incentive for the network to determine whether the flow is SCONE compliant or not. Once the network starts on the DPI path, then I'm not sure what will trigger to switch over to SCONE, because once you've gone that path, then you're sticking with that path. So I think this is a critical requirement for SCONE deployment and its success. So if we can consider that true indication from the outset is sort of setting up a different treatment altogether versus the DPI, then I think that gives SCONE a good chance of adoption and deployability.
Yeah, I guess I want to add to Sanjay's point. I think I agree that this is Renji from YouTube. I agree that if we somehow can help the middle boxes to get away from DPI as soon as possible, that would be easier for them to adopt. Also, I'm just curious on the design of this signaling or strawman mechanism. can we just send out a SCONE packet and let the middle box just fill in the throughput device and send it to the server, instead of like I think the current design is that the server sends a packet and the middle box fill it in and sends it to the client. If we change it to like for the signal to go to the server, would that just achieve the goal?
I think Martin says no. I don't know if you saw that chat, Renji.
Yeah, I mean, I would, I mean, to answer Renji's question, there is a good reason the design is the way it is that the other path is just not reliable. I mean, in order to know the other path, I mean, you would have to go through firewalls that are designed to work from the client, etc. So there is no good way to send that. Whereas if you send the message on the forward pass and we are on the client, you're much more reliable. On the indication mechanism, I really wonder whether the indication, if it is to help the network understand that the server is ready or that the client is ready. Because if both do it, then there is no need for acknowledgement whatsoever. You have all the information you want. But more to the point, the general point, I mean, we have to look at that from a game theory point of view. What's the reason a network will deploy SCONE? What's the reason a client or an application will enroll in SCONE? And I think that we are pretty loose there. Clearly, the network wants to deploy SCONE because that way there will be a set of traffic that would volunteer to be slowed down if conditions are dire. That's one thing. But from the application point of view, that's not that great a deal. I mean, the application says, okay, if conditions are dire, I'm going to be slowed down, but I'm going to be slowed down anyhow, even if I don't say anything. And in fact, I would be slowed down more if I put down the SCONE flag than if I don't. So when I think at SCONE, there are two different usage. There's one usage when you say the network is what it is. It's not going to change whether you say do SCONE or not, but doing SCONE will give you more information about what the network is. That's one view in which the network is basically passive, but says, you know what? Whatever you do, I'm not going to give you more than 50 megs. That's one thing. And in that case, it's purely informational. There is another view in which the network is active and says, oh, you do SCONE, I'm going to limit you to 20 meg. And you have to understand why there is a benefit to the client for that. Is the application going to a path in which the latency is better? Is there a different form of queuing or whatever? Because otherwise, I mean, on one hand, we can have design that make it very attractive for the network and not attractive for the application. On the other hand, we can have design that are attractive for the application and a bit dull for the network. So if we don't solve that kind of game theory to say that there is an equilibrium that pushes both to do it, then we will have a deployment problem. And that's it.
Right, Kazuho. So I want to push back to what others said. And I think the important point is that indications can be abused. And separately, media flows might not have indications. For example, when there's a NAT binding, you cannot have an indication being sent. So regardless if we have indications or not, network elements have to monitor the flow rate. And if it says that the flow rate is above what it expects as being indicated by SCONE. The network elements have to go back to throttling using the congestion control. If network elements are to give preferential treatment to flows with indication or the other way, that is going to motivate users to abuse the signal. So to paraphrase, considering these deployment problems, I say that it would be much simpler if the network elements decide to apply the same policy, regardless of the flow, regardless of if the flow has indications or not. And then, I mean, assuming that the people would go in this direction, I think the question is if we need indications at all.
Sorry. I think that one of the most important things has come up in the chat here that we need to discuss, but I want to separate this out to some extent. The question here is whether the presence of an indication is a promise that the application involved is willing to receive signals or would like to receive the signals. And it is my firm position that if we're not in the business of creating a signal that says this is a particular class of application, we're not telling the network that this is a flow for a video application, or we're not telling the network anything about the endpoint. This is only a signal that the endpoint is capable of receiving the signal. It says nothing more than that. And yes, Miriam, I understand, but there's no way that I would condone implementation of this on privacy grounds if the signal were to mean anything more than that.
Yeah, and also I want to say that if we do SCONE signal to say this flow can do SCONE later, I don't think this will prevent the network elements from doing DPAC inspections. If they can, like without ECH, I think they're still going to do DPI anyways, because in many cases, for example, they will treat Facebook traffic and YouTube traffic differently. They will still need to do DPIs to know where, like which service this flow is going to, even with SCONE.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of good discussion around this. I think, though, the thing we have to consider is that we've heard that some people say that this would help with deployments. I don't think that this meaningfully changes any of the privacy properties, because we're not changing anything about like a flow that was going to use like the SCONE as we've designed it so far. All of the same information is available to a wire observer, whether or not you have an indication. The only thing the indication changes is that it adds a little bit of a technical wrinkle bit to the protocol. So it's like we've added a bit of a wart onto the protocol for the purposes of what we've heard will help deployments in certain situations. And I think that's the thing we should probably focus our decision on: is are we is that a good thing? My position is it's probably a good thing if I hear that people are going to be more willing to start using SCONE and not use DPI if we have this technical capability, even if it's only something that we don't use in perpetuity, if it's only something that like is useful for like a few years, like 5 to 10 years, like that's still valuable enough, at least from my perspective, to spend some time building that solution. I don't think we should add anything to the protocol that fundamentally changes anything about the privacy or whatever, anything like that. But I don't think that's what we're discussing necessarily here. At least I can't see a way that this meaningfully changes the information that's available on the wire.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Oh, my audio is being weird. I'll just speak and someone can tell me to go away. Otherwise, I don't work on a browser, but I interact with them a lot. And yeah, like browsers aren't the only user agent. Fine, if you're building an app, either a command line thing or some mobile app, you can do whatever you want, sure. But if you're just browsing the web and your app is a website that is full of URLs and JavaScript to do things, and you're hoping to have some discretion control over what you instruct the browser to do when it opens a quick connection to the world, like that's not going to exist. Right? It's just not going to happen. You're going to have to require some kind of decoration of URLs or add new APIs or some sort of thing that is saying, I want to leak privacy information or private information to the world, and that's not going to fly. So, like, I don't see why we'd bother trying to invent something that is not going to be deployable on a huge swathe of user agents out there. Yeah, I just think it's a non-starter.
Hi, Sanjay again, Verizon. So I'm probably running the risk of repeating, but I firmly believe that success of SCONE hinges upon at least the network knowing, getting the indication. And again, I think we should probably not translate indication into anything more than that. It's just a way for the network to know that, oh, this is a SCONE supported application. So maybe I need to hold off the DPI, hold off any bit rate throttling, and maybe set up a longer average window to determine the bit rate. So I think that's the key, because what we want to do is to make sure that SCONE is giving that choice that, hey, here's a different option that you can put this into a different bucket to treat how you want to handle this flow. This is not your standard flow where you start to look at what, like was previously said, that the window may be 1 second and then it'll start to throttle right away. What we want to do is give network the chance that this is a different flow, set a longer window threshold for this, average over 20 seconds maybe, and see where how the flow is going, and then start to handle that traffic. So I think I really think that the indication is allowing the network to know that I need to treat this flow differently than the other flows. That's all.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think I might be repeating my concern, but then I think I have the motivation to set the indication on every flow that I generate. I mean, for short flows, for any flow, and get a better throughput. So there's that kind of abuse in the security aspect. And I think that model doesn't work.
I'm not sure. So there are a lot of different factors that also go in, right? One we just talked about the indication here. Now, if there's every packet trying to do that, there are other parts of the network. So I think why there's throttling in some cases, it's because there's a data plan that basically is keeping the user within the data plan, and that allowing them to not to exceed and pay anything extra than what they have already agreed to pay. So there's also the real aspect of what the data plan might be. And I know data plan is only specific to the US and not other places. But if there are cheaters over the long window, that would basically uncover itself. So I think the indication itself is not really setting anything up about how you will use. That's a different story. I think even if you don't mean to, even if you are a true SCONE user and you might try to overshare the bandwidth, network will eventually try to sort that out. So that's not a problem. I think we're really talking about is that whether or not it makes sense to indicate to the network that I'm a SCONE, I would likely support SCONE, right? That's what all you're saying and nothing else.
Yeah, on a similar point, I think one thing that is important to discuss here is that there are different reasons and different policies around throttling and shaping where this matters. Like the point that Kazuo made that about sending throne indications on every short flow and getting better throughput. Yeah, that would be a way to abuse it if those flows would have been rate limited otherwise. And that depends on the type of throttling we're looking at here. For the video use case, it's typically so that they don't care about throttling these short HTTP flows, so they will typically be unaffected. But if you have something like a bitrate cap for the entire user, like based on the user's data plan, or that you're out of quota, so you only have some small session bitrate that applies to all of your traffic, then you probably wouldn't have this. Then I think in these cases, the operators would be much more restrictive. The operators would likely do something like initiate with throttling, and if you see SCONE later on, maybe you switch off throttling for that, or maybe you even don't. But for the case for like video throttling, you might want to look at the indication and treat that as, okay, I'm going to give some time here to do my averaging and so on. So yes, there might be possibilities for abuse, but I think we have to look at that there are very different reasons for throttling, and yeah, I'm not sure that particular case applies for that video case.
Right. So I think it's true that there are data plans and the network operators can apply bandwidth limiting, or I mean, they can punish those abuse. But the problem is that there'll be mixed flows as well. I mean, browsers, for example, do mixed flows. So there are going to be cases where some of the communication happening on the flow might want to have SCONE signal, but the others will not respect it. So if we consider those deployment cases, it becomes much harder to detect and enforce, detect and act upon what's assumed to be an abuse, because it's hard to detect, hard to determine if it's an abuse. So I'm not really sure if you want to go that way.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is like a lot of doubt about whether this would mediate things like use of DPI in certain cases. And like, it's fine to doubt stuff, but is that a reason for us not to build it? Just say like, if someone comes to us and says, hey, this would really help with deploying this protocol, and then we just like, I don't believe you. Like, I don't think that's a really great position to take. Like, I'm not hearing like a really strong reason not to build this stuff from anybody. Like, yes, there are some technical challenges and there's some gotchas for sure. But I think we can at least try to work through those and see where it gets us. And I would rather have this capability. And if the things don't pan out and it doesn't actually meaningfully change adoption or get rid of some cases of DPI, that's fine. But like, I would rather be in that position than be in the position where we're stuck having published a protocol that we struggle getting deployment because it's missing this feature that we were asked to add to the protocol. So I would just like people to mull on that, unless we have like a really strong reason that we think this would be damaging to put in, which I'm not currently hearing. Jen, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So next is Zhenjie. Thank you for a reminder.
Yeah, a question on when to send the signals. I think it's pretty straightforward for an application who that owns the clients to, like say like Android and like iOS clients to know when to send the signals. But for a browser, how does the browser know which flow is an actual video flow and sends this SCONE signal to the network element? I'm just curious about that.
Okay. Next, Christian.
Well, as we have said, I mean, there's a privacy issue in telling the network you do this, you do that. I also do not believe that video should be treated specially. I mean, the whole internet is based on the principle as a bit is a bit. It doesn't matter whether it's a bit of video or a bit of data or your income taxes or whatever. So this business of facilitating a design that a bit is not a bit is going to backfire by either being as used or not being adopted. We have to make sure that if we do SCONE, it's about transport issues. It says things very simple that your bandwidth will be at most this. That's fine. That's a fine signal. It applies to video. It applies to video games. It applies to you're doing your taxes. It applies to whatever. Okay. Trying to say if you have SCONE, you must do video. That's really silly because, hey, as all the browser guys tell you, they don't know that a browsing session will in fact do video. It will do video 5 minutes in. They don't know that. Okay. And so the whole concept should be very much about this is the network is telling us, okay, given the circumstance, your maximum data rate is this. So it's because the network has, for some reason, decided to do throttling at some level. And it could do the throttling by using just congestion signal. It could do the throttling using ECN, for example, which will be a great way to do that. But it can also warn the application in advance, so the application can have a good logic on how to use the bits rather than having to react to fraction of second by fraction of second changes in the congestion control. So that's really the contract. Now, does that contract require some kind of indication? I think that the mechanism that when I look at that PR, the mechanisms are weird. I mean, having something embedded in the quick handshake is really weird. What I believe is that if we want the server, basically the client is saying to the server, the client can send a SCONE packet at any time. It could send that in the original connection. It's not a problem. The server could also send a SCONE packet systematically at the end of the connection, at the end of the handshake, or at any point in between. I don't think that taking those things as some kind of contract for anything, but if you send me a SCONE packet, I will understand what it means, and I will try to do something with the bandwidth that you announce. That's about the only thing that matters. Anything else, all this business of contract, of pseudo contract, is really, really not something we should be doing.
So I'm just going to completely agree with basically everything that Christian said here. There's no way that something like SCONE gets implemented in Firefox if it carries a signal about what the user's doing on that connection. That's just completely unacceptable for privacy reasons. And more practically speaking, we just don't have the ability to have that prior warning. As Christian noted, we make a connection and at some point it will be used for video, and we don't necessarily know that that's the case. If we were to give the websites that are asking for those connections to be created, the ability to do that, what we do is we split the connection pool in two. We have the connections that have SCONE enabled and the connections that don't have SCONE enabled. And the connection reuse for that degrades. So if you have to create a connection explicitly because someone's asked for SCONE to be enabled on it, then you have to create an extra connection. And you're not reusing an existing connection, which degrades performance and reduces our ability to see what's going on. We get fewer of those congestion control benefits because we now have two connections, the same host. There's all sorts of other problems. And quite frankly, SCONE is really easy to implement, and we would probably implement it turned on by default for every quick flow that we initiate. That solves the privacy problem, and it also solves the performance problems. Anyone suggesting that this is, you can just turn it on and off is probably going to find that turning it on and off and working out the conditions under which it needs to be turned on and off and plumbing through the signals to enable it to turn on and off is more work than just turning it on for everyone.
Okay, so I want to just bring it back to the original topic here, which is the indications. I think we're kind of getting a little bit lost in the weeds of like some of this stuff about like what SCONE means, these like philosophical questions, but like just from a purely like the indication itself. So I'll remind everyone that the indication that we're kind of trying to propose here carries no net new information relative to what is already as part of what SCONE is, which is to say a negotiated thing that is observable in the flow. So all this does, this indication, is we're just saying, can we move something to a different part of a UDP datagram to give a hint to a network element? That's the thing that I think we need to try to get some sort of progress on, and whether we can go and try to build that thing. All these other questions in this discussion is great about like usage and about like what the implications are, and all of these are great discussions to have, but I don't think they're strictly relevant to the presence of an indication or not, because the indication is not changing anything about what's visible. It doesn't really change anything about SCONE, because it's not actually material to the negotiation of SCONE, the protocol. So again, I've not heard anything that's like explicitly against the usage of an indication, just that there's skepticism that it's useful, and that there's a lot of other concerns people have about how SCONE could be abused for other purposes. So does anyone have any like thoughts on why we shouldn't go to try to at least do some of these technical explorations on if we can get a nicer looking indication in the draft?
Next question. So is there anyone still in the queue? Actually, I see Sanjay and Renjie, unless you forgot to move from the queue.
Yeah, I took my hand out, but it looks like it's still there. But anyway, I'll take this opportunity again. So I think Matt, I think it's a good idea. And yeah, I mean, if we don't go into the too deep of the philosophical meaning and what it is indicating, and I don't see that indication as a privacy. And Martin maybe can speak to that more. But my point is that if the question is indication a good thing, so that the network is able to treat this signal in a different manner than the typical flow, and all it would do is give network a longer window to wash the flow. So I think if that's a question, I think I'm I'm supportive of Matt, what you're proposing. And I'll try to take my hand out again, but let's see. I think you still see me there, right? But
yeah, I can have you remove. Yeah.
Okay, that worked.
Yeah. Okay. I think we hear a lot of good discussion on this strong indication topic, and yeah, I think a lot of debate on this actually. On one hand, actually, it seems use this strong indication, can really help to improve the experience, but there's strong privacy concern, and that's quite a lot of work to do. And so, Marcus, my method. Do you think this strong indication should be integrated into this draft before we go for adoption?
So, I mean, I would really like it if this was part of the draft for the reasons I said. Like, I agree with the discussion on the PR that mostly from Kazuho, Martin, and Christian about the technical difficulties here. But I think we can overcome a lot of that. And I think it's worth spending the time to do that. That's why I kind of proposed at least like having some sort of indication as part of the document that we adopt. And we can always decide later down the line, like, this is not worth it. This is getting too complicated. Like we've done that with other protocols before where we rip stuff out. It's not in the charter that this needs to be here. It's just like this is something that we've heard would be nice to have. So I think it's worth spending the time to put something in the document, adopt it like that. And if we want to trash it later, fine. But like, I don't think we shouldn't conflate it with some of these other bigger philosophical topics about how and why you should use SCONE, because it doesn't really change any of that. So I don't know if like Marcus, Martin, Christian, Kazuho, if you guys have thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. It does. I think it would be good to have this from the start, and then yeah, like I say, we can rip it out. And also, I agree with that. This doesn't fundamentally change any of the properties, and also would note that for any flow where the application client and the application server are kind of they kind of know each other, which is the common case for a bunch of large applications, you can already do this. If you know for a fact that your server end can speak SCONE, you could put a SCONE packet on your first packet. So I think this doesn't change any of these properties. If you do SCONE, if the SCONE protocol is there, this piece of information doesn't change in itself any of the privacy properties. And I agree that these are a ton of useful discussions that we're having here, and I fully agree with Matt that these are separate from the indication question.
Yeah, so I'm a you ain't gonna need it advocate here. I'd like to see a stronger indication that there will be some material value in the transitionary phase. So if we imagine a world where there's no SCONE today and there's all SCONE at some point in the future, what transition plan would require that we have something like this? I'm okay with it. I'm not like fundamentally opposed to having a signal. I just don't think it adds a whole lot of value because you're still in a state as a network element that you don't know that the signal is going to be respected, and you don't know that the signal is even going to be coming. The opportunities are going to be coming. So a client can send the indication in their initial packet, and the server can simply not support the protocol. And you'll never see an indication coming from the server. Or the server decides not to use the protocol because it is not using that particular type of traffic. And so I think, to Christian's point earlier, the networks are going to continue to use DPI, and I think this is probably on balance not a great deal, in the sense that if the upside, if the thing we get in exchange for sending the indication is less DPI, then with no guarantee that we're going to get less DPI, I don't think we need to put the work in to do it. That said, I'm not fundamentally opposed to doing it. It's just useless bytes. So whatever.
So, question?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as Martin there, and I don't believe that we actually need that as part of the base, of the adoption call. What you're trying to do, Matt, there is have a signal that arrives in the middle of the handshake. Because you want the signal in the middle of the handshake because for some reason you suspect that network elements are going to attach state to the for tuple when they see the first handshake packet. What we'll see is that we'll see that attached to every packet. It's pretty clear that if we get that signal, it will be attached to every packet, because there is no way in the beginning of the handshake for the application to know anything about what will happen later. So if there is a value to having that in every packet, why not? But I mean, I don't think it's the right concept compared to just having, the reason we want a signal that is not a SCONE packet sent end-to-end is because we are afraid that the server will receive a packet for capability as not negotiated, and the whole quick packet will be dropped. That's really what we are trading off there. I'm kind of meh. That's
Okay, I think we need to wrap up. Marcus, Kanzahu, can you make sure? Kanzahu?
Right. So I think we're having a good discussion, but we cannot make a decision at this point. I prefer going to adoption call without merging this pull request because we don't know if it's going to work, or we have a good design or not. And because DPI, because we already have DPI, and therefore indication is kind of a nice have rather than a must have. That's my view.
Okay, thank you. So I think this is the end of this session, and we will. So in terms of wrap up, actually, thanks everyone to attend this meeting. Thanks Matt, Martin, and Zaho, and many others to help drive this discussion. And I think this is a very good discussion. Still, for this strong indication is still need to be discussed. I think for the next step we'll kick off the working group adoption, and also I think we will see whether this strong indication should be integrated, and maybe we still need to take it offline. And for next interim meeting will be the May 21, and I hope we can have some more bandwidth to discuss new code on related adaptability and manage. Okay. So this is the end of this session. Thanks for everyone. See you in the next interim meeting.